Hi, it's Ed Thompson here. Welcome back to another video on running injuries. Today we're talking about runner's knee and some of the mistakes that I made earlier on in my career when treating runners with knee pain. In this video, we're going to go into an underrated and overlooked technique which can be used to help runners get over their injuries and get back to doing what they love. And that thing is to do with your running schedule. So we're going to go into that in a moment. So the title of the video is I Got It Wrong. And that's because earlier on in my career, I overvalued rehabilitation and treating my patients with the best exercises, the best number of reps and sets, and how many times per day and per week to do it, but overlooked something called your training schedule. And 70% of running injuries stem from a training error. So what someone's training schedule looks like has a really, really big impact on whether someone gets better, whether they get injured again, and it could be the reason why they got injured in the first place as well. So if we overlook that, then we're missing out on a whole goldmine of things that can help. So we're going to go into what I mean by that in a second. But even before we look at someone's training schedule, what's even more important is to look at the athlete themselves and ask them, why is it you run? Because someone's mindset, someone's driving force behind them, what motivates them is really, really important. Let me give you some examples. So a runner who identifies as a runner, someone who lives and breathes it, all of their friends are runners and they socialize by running. If they get injured and they have a decision to make about whether to run and carry on hurting their knee but seeing their friends, or stopping running for a period of time, which allows the knee to get better but also stops them socializing, and actually it almost takes away their identity. So it's a really huge thing that can't be taken lightly, and could be why someone would just carry on running, carry on hurting their knee. And no matter how much rehabilitation we do with that patient, if their training schedule doesn't reflect what their knee can tolerate, then they might not get better, basically. And similarly, if someone's running to lose weight and they successfully do that and they manage to lose weight and they're really happy, if they get an injury, then it's going to take a lot for them to stop running, because they've made so much progress, and to feel like they're losing that progress, or potentially they're going to put the weight back on. A lot of the time we find people who would rather just run on, carry on going with their knee hurting loads from running, just so they don't go backwards with their weight loss. So they're just some examples of how it's important to look at someone's identity, who's in front of us, before we even get to the training schedule. So what do I mean by a training error? What do I mean by someone's training schedule? What I mean is the frequency, the intensity of someone's the week that they run each week. So often people overvalue intensity and undervalue rest and recovery. And basically all we're looking at is how much someone can tolerate. If that line is here, that's the maximum someone can tolerate. And that's their kind of maximum. And making sure that the training schedule, or how much their volume of running, doesn't go any higher than that maximum amount of tolerance. So if it starts to go over repeatedly over a period of weeks, then that's when we start to overload structures and get injuries, basically. And it's kind of, I say it's that simple. Running injuries are complex, but that basic principle is what we pay a lot of attention to in physio. And rehabilitation can increase someone's maximum load tolerance. So rehabilitation is important because it means someone can run more. But I would say their training schedule is something we can change and influence, and it can have a really good effect on a runner. Whereas if we just did a rehabilitation and didn't change someone's training schedule, I think there's often times that we wouldn't make any difference at all. So sometimes we can actually treat runners without doing any rehabilitation, just with running. So we can sometimes say running is rehab. Now, I mentioned about rest and recovery, and lots of runners say rest is rust, and if you're not going 10 out of 10, blowing, your legs are hurting, and you wake up the next day and your legs are stiff. If you're not getting any of those things, it's a waste of a workout. That kind of bad outlook can lead to a lot of injuries as well, because those types of thoughts and beliefs will dictate someone's behavior and the actions that they take, which can be very destructive and stop them from getting better, or cause more injuries. So what we want with our runners is a more 80-20 principle of scheduling their week. So 80% could be low and slow, below 5 out of 10 on their effort scale. So 10 is couldn't push yourself any harder, 5 is somewhere in the middle, 0 is just walking down the street. And a runner came to me recently. She was doing 3 Barry's boot camps and then a load of sprinting on and really intense work on I think it was park run. She was trying to get a PB every week. So basically, those 4 times she was working out during the week, they were probably an 8 out of 10 on the effort scale. And that's why she kept having these injuries from really innocuous things. And she sort of said, I don't know why I keep getting these injuries. I think I'm getting old. But really, it's a training schedule that is the issue, because her legs are tired, they're not recovering, everything's overloaded, and then it just takes small things to start causing big injuries to happen, basically. So with her, I've talked to her about zone 2 running and slowing and reducing the intensity, keep the consistency, but reduce the intensity, because I basically explained it to her that it's a choice that you're making and you need to make if you want to carry on with this type of fitness schedule and have a really high risk of injuring yourself and having to see me every week, or changing your running schedule and changing your training program to reflect what your body can tolerate so that you don't get injured as much. That would be obviously what I'd recommend. But ultimately, it's up to the patient, really. And all we can do is recommend and explain, because certain times someone doesn't want to stop and they actually need different therapy, which isn't physiotherapy. It might be more like talking therapy, because they might be using exercise to combat stress. And I would say for me, coping with stress with running is good, but I would say, treating chronic stress with running is bad, because whatever the stressor isn't getting treated, and we're almost trying to treat and feel good from running, but it's not really addressing the issue. And that's where talking therapies or a career coach, because often it is work related and people get home from work, they just want to blow off some steam. And in reality, if they had a more fulfilling job, or they were less stressed because of their work, then they wouldn't feel the need to be blowing and going to do workouts that almost kill them, in their way of explaining it, just so they get that runner's high every time they go for a workout. But also, they're hurting themselves at the same time as well. So, and that's, the last point I wanted to make about rest and recovery. There's all sorts of studies that show the level of increase in risk from every hour less of sleep that you get per night. So Cristiano Ronaldo, Federer, both famous for sleeping for 9 to 12 hours a day. And it's been called the most legal performance enhancing drug there is, sleep, because it has such a dramatic effect on performance, recovery, injury recovery, and injury prevention, that neglecting your sleep is a huge thing to consider when you've got a persistent knee problem, because what that does really is just reduce your maximum capacity, and it also slows down your recovery every time you run. So someone sleeps 9 hours a night, they could probably run every day because they're getting good recovery. I'm not saying that across the board, but whereas if someone's sleeping 6 hours a night, and they're going to basically recover a lot slower, and not be able to make as much progress. But even having said that, if we know that someone doesn't sleep well, they've tried everything, they only need to get 6 hours a night, and that's the maximum for them. What we need to do is have a training schedule that reflects that. And we may well get them to run every other day, or we may well get them to cross train, so getting them on a bike. So that it doesn't mean that if you don't sleep, you shouldn't run, and you're never going to get better. But it's just starting where you're at, basically. And but if you can bag an extra few hours of sleep per night and you're a runner, and you keep getting injured, then that's definitely going to have a good impact, because on top of your recovery, lack of sleep lowers the threshold for pain a lot of the time as well, because cortisol is running through your body because you're sleep deprived, and that lowers the threshold for pain. So your body may have a bit of micro trauma that it's dealing with after your last run, which you wouldn't normally notice. But if you've got cortisol running through your body because of sleep deprivation, then you may well feel that micro trauma, that you may well feel more sensitive in certain structures that you wouldn't otherwise normally. So I hope you found today useful. We've covered quite a lot of things. I want you to hit subscribe, because we're going to do loads more of these videos. And I also want you to try and book a call with me, 15 minutes over Zoom. I just want to find out what you want me to do videos on. We see all types of injuries. We do specialize in running injuries at my clinic in Tooting. All you have to do is email hello@instantphysio.co.uk, and yeah, we can have a chat. I'm seeing a hockey coach, or we're doing an interview next week or next month. So yeah, there's different athletes and different populations of people that we see as well. So yeah, really open to learning what people would like to learn more from me about. But thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon.